Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder. We're still not in we're not in an ideal place with this fight. Now, Eddie Hearn was on Talksport yesterday and he stated that the fight could still go ahead if the Saudi deal does not come to fruition. Okay, but he says it may end up being pushed back to March or April next year, with Wembley or Las Vegas being potential venues. He said that AJ might fight in December. Apparently, Wilder is eyeing about in November. Okay, well, November's still 2 months away, but you would expect to hear a little bit of movement from that. Now, Eddie Hearn has also gone on to say today with Boxing Social that both camps mentally committed to that fight. He said he was speaking to Shelley Finkel last night. We thought that the fight was done, but if it's not done, we'd like to save it. At the same time, Joshua and Wilder are number 1 and number 2 respectively with the WBC. So what likely I would expect to happen, and I'm hearing a lot of rumours that this is the case, that this will end up happening, is that WBC will just announce that Joshua and Wilder are going to fight in the final eliminator. Now, first and foremost, as much as I want to see Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder, and I really do want to see it, Eddie Hearn there has talked about both guys having interim fights, right? And I said, look, don't promise us the fight if it's not going to be next. Now, if both guys do take interim fights, but the fight is a done deal to happen after it, as in, like, it is done, it's going to happen next April or next March, then I will be okay both guys having interim fights, because the fight is there, it's done. It's just not happening next, but it's definitely happening the fight after. If, however, in fact, that both guys take interim fights and we're still no sooner, we're hearing, oh, it might happen this. No. Don't promise us it if it's not going to be it next. I like what he's saying, that he's not going to be just kind of looking to get the Saudi deal. It's going to be, if we can do it in Wembley, we'll do it there. If it pays more to do it in Vegas. I like the fact that Hearn is looking at other avenues. He's not just, solely saying, okay, well, without the Saudis, this fight don't happen. He's looking and saying, okay, it's still a big fight in the UK. It's a big fight reasonably in America. They can still make money from it. They won't make as much as the Saudis will make, but they'll still get something. In terms of both guys being, fighting in the final eliminator, both guys being 1 and 2 with the WBC, that I have an issue with. I don't like that, because both guys, well, Wilder being number 1 ranked and potentially getting the final eliminator is just a joke. And, Joshua being ranked number 2, having beaten Hellenius and Franklin, again, that's a joke to me, as far as I'm concerned. Both guys, well, Wilder has only fought 1 fight since 2021. He's won 1 fight since 2021, and he could find himself in a final eliminator. And he's number 1 ranked by the WBC. I mean, what the hell? With Joshua, again, he's had 2 fights, and I don't believe either had a WBC even trick a title on the line. So it's not like he's even been, because the other way sometimes you can get, Anthony Yarde is a good example, where they win like an intercontinental title, they defend that a few times against whoever, and it just artificially boosts them up the rankings. It's not even been like that with Joshua or Wilder. So for me, for both guys to have literally done nothing over the last year, and to be in this situation ahead of guys who you could turn around and say, well, gee, Frank Sanchez hasn't done much since he beat F.A. Jag, but that's nearly 2 years ago. I would say, yeah, that's fair enough. I'll give you that. But he's not taken an L in the immediate time. And he's been a little bit more active. And I just think it's just, these guys should get a chance. It happens with all the sanction bodies. Like, who, cast your minds back to Kid Galahad. It seems like that guy, no matter what happened with him, the IBF will just keep him at number 1. He gets his mandatory shot against Josh Warrington. He loses. He's straight back in a final eliminator against some whoever, and then he's mandatory again. It's like, are there not other people fighting IBF, title fights, or, defending tricket titles who deserve maybe another crack instead of, Kid Galahad straight away? They've done that a lot of times, sanctioning bodies. I can understand it sometimes if it's a really close fight and maybe they don't want to order a rematch, but they want to maybe just kind of give the guy a rematch without ordering it or something like that, maybe. But if you're just a champion loses and then straight away, put him back in number 1, it's like, really? Why? At least have him do something, which neither Wilder or Joshua have done. If that ends up being called, so if they do order that as a mandatory, 2 things spring to mind. One, if Joshua does fight Wilder and he beats him, I would say that the chances of getting Fury Usyk are even lower than they already are, because I think that Eddie Hearn would obviously push, as with Anthony Joshua, to get the Fury fight. And I think that Fury knows that that's a big fight, regardless where he has it, whether he has it in the UK or whether he does it in Saudi Arabia. That's going to generate a lot of money, a lot of revenue. Would it generate more than a Usyk fight? I mean, you could probably argue it probably would. True, it probably would, to be fair. Maybe not. It just depends how much the Saudis are willing to put up. But in terms of just maybe fan intrigue, even though Joshua has taken 3 L's, back to back against Usyk, it probably still would have more fan intrigue. I'm not gonna lie, it probably would. So I could see them probably looking to force that fight. Both Hearn and Frank Warren would probably be like, well, look, we fancy your chance more against Joshua than Usyk. Also, there's something you have to factor in, is that if it goes to purse bids and you can't, or sorry, if it gets ordered and they can't come to an agreement, it goes to purse bids. That's interesting in another aspect, because then it's really anybody's game. PBC could make a big bid for it, Eddie Hearn could make a big bid for it, but purse bids aren't just reserved for the 2 promoters, they're for everyone. Who's to say, Frank Warren doesn't come in, backed by a little bit of help from somebody, and, put up a crazy bid. How does Joshua fancy fighting on TNT Sport? I don't think that would go down well with the Zone. I don't. So there's a lot that could happen between now and then. If the fight gets called as a final eliminator, we'll have to wait and see. I wouldn't be shocked if WBC do it, because I think they're feeling, well, I say pressure, but maybe they don't. Sullivan, I don't think really gives that much of a you-know-what. But I would imagine that they have got some backlash for a few things. They've got backlash for the Charlo situation at 160 pounds, which is a complete farce. I mean, the guy is no sooner looking set to return to the ring than whatever, and he's still champion. And Sullivan is still batting for him to keep that title. That's a disgrace, as far as I'm concerned. That is an absolute shambles. It really, truly is. And the fact that Sullivan is getting pressure for that, the fact that there's not been a mandatory call now for the WBC, and they've just kind of given Tyson Fury carte blanche to do whatever the hell he wants. I think for him, he's going to be like, okay, come what, November, when we have our conference, we're going to make sure that we kind of give the impression that, we're doing our damnedest to, enforce and call these mandatories, and we're making final eliminators. And I think that's the whole reason and rationale behind making Joshua and Wilder number 1 and number 2 respectively, is to call that as a final eliminator. And then obviously they'll try and force that mandatory whenever it happens. And it'll be interesting because, as I've said with the BBC, with some mandatories and some fighters, they're very strict with mandatories. You look at Artur Beterbiev, there's no kind of rest for him. When he fights a mandatory, the WBC will pretty soon call another one, and it's like, you're fighting him now. Okay, I'm fighting him. Whereas you look at Charlo, you're a middleweight contender and someone says, do you want to fight an eliminator for the WBC title? You'd be like, why? Because when the hell am I going to get that title shot? I'd sooner fight for the IBF, because at least I know if I'm mandatory, I'm at least going to get a crack. With WBC, it could be 6 months, it could be 24 months. I don't want to wait that long. So that's the situation there. Look, as I said, I want to see Wilder versus Joshua. I like that fight. I nearly said Fury there. I'd rather see Fury Usyk. I want to see that fight. I want to see Joshua against Wilder. If you are going to promise us the fight, deliver it, as far as I'm concerned. Don't just say it's going to be this, it's going to be this, blah, 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 and then it not happen. I want to see it delivered, and I hope we get it. It's going to be interesting if it gets called, and if it goes to purse bids or anything like that, what would happen from then, because that really could open up a whole other can of worms, but we'll get to that when we know it a little bit more great depth. I'll leave it there, people. Hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe, of course, as always, if you haven't already. For now, lads and lassies, I'll leave you with that. Hope you enjoyed it, people. Smash the like button.